Everyone in the city knew one rule about Adrian Blackwood: never challenge the man who had built an empire from fear and respect. But on the day a Black Maid looked him in the eyes and refused to lower her voice, the most feared mafia boss discovered something he had never expected. Sophia Carter was not supposed to matter. She was supposed to be another employee inside the Blackwood estate, someone who followed instructions, stayed invisible, and never questioned the powerful people who lived behind its tall iron gates. That was how the world worked around Adrian Blackwood. People obeyed him. People carefully chose their words around him. People saw his reputation before they ever saw the man. Adrian was known as one of the most powerful figures in the city, a Korean Mafia boss whose name carried influence everywhere he went. His presence alone changed the atmosphere of a room. Yet behind the expensive suits, the quiet confidence, and the carefully controlled image, Adrian lived a life surrounded by distance. Everyone respected him, but almost no one truly knew him. Sophia Carter noticed that difference on her first day inside the estate. She arrived expecting to meet a man who would be impossible to approach. Instead, she found someone who seemed tired of being treated like a legend. The mansion was beautiful, with marble floors, elegant furniture, and rooms larger than anything Sophia had ever known. But despite all its luxury, the place felt strangely quiet. It felt like a home that had everything except warmth. When Sophia first met Adrian, she expected arrogance. She expected someone who believed his position made him better than everyone else. Instead, she found a man who spoke calmly and watched everything around him with careful attention. He asked simple questions about her work and thanked her for her efforts. It was not kindness that surprised Sophia. It was the feeling that Adrian was hiding something behind his cold expression. Most people around him avoided honesty. Sophia had spent her life learning that respect was not the same as fear. She knew the difference between someone who deserved admiration and someone who only demanded obedience. That belief followed her when Adrian questioned one of her decisions in the household. Others would have immediately agreed with him. They would have apologized and walked away. Sophia simply explained her reasoning with a calm voice. The room became silent. Everyone expected Adrian to react differently. They expected anger, disappointment, or a reminder of his authority. But Adrian only looked at her with curiosity. For the first time in a long time, someone had spoken to him without trying to impress him or protect themselves. Sophia did not challenge him because she wanted attention. She challenged him because she believed honesty mattered. That small moment stayed in Adrian's mind long after the conversation ended. He had spent years surrounded by people who saw his power before they saw his personality. But this woman, a Black Maid with no title, no influence, and no reason to stand against him, had done something nobody else had. She had treated him like a normal person. As the days passed, Adrian began noticing Sophia more often. He saw the way she treated every employee with respect. He saw how she helped others without expecting recognition. He saw a strength that did not come from wealth or authority. And Sophia began noticing something about Adrian as well. The most feared man in the city was not as untouchable as everyone believed. Behind the reputation was a person carrying a loneliness that nobody else seemed willing to see. Neither of them realized it yet, but their first encounter had already changed something. The man who controlled everything had finally met the one person he could not intimidate. And the woman everyone overlooked had just become the only person brave enough to see him clearly. The moment Sophia Carter spoke honestly to Adrian Blackwood, something inside the Blackwood estate began to shift. It was not a dramatic change that everyone noticed immediately. It was something quieter, something hidden in small conversations and brief moments that slowly revealed a different side of the man everyone feared. Adrian was still the same powerful mafia boss who commanded respect throughout the city. He still carried himself with confidence, and he still had the presence of someone who was used to controlling every situation around him. But Sophia had noticed something others ignored. The power surrounding Adrian was not the only thing defining him. There was also a distance, a silence that followed him wherever he went. In the days after their first disagreement, Sophia continued her work inside the estate as if nothing unusual had happened. She did not seek Adrian's attention. She did not try to prove herself. She simply continued doing what she believed was right. That was what made Adrian curious. Most people around him adjusted their behavior depending on his mood. They carefully measured every word because they wanted his approval or feared disappointing him. Sophia was different. She treated him with the same respect she gave everyone else. Not more, not less. Adrian noticed that difference every day. One morning, he found Sophia organizing the library shelves. The room was filled with soft sunlight, creating a peaceful atmosphere inside the large mansion. Adrian asked why she always took extra time to help others when nobody required her to do so. Sophia looked surprised by the question. She explained that kindness was not something people should only show when they expected something in return. She believed small actions could reveal a person's true character. Adrian remained quiet after hearing that answer. He had spent years surrounded by people who measured everything through influence and advantage. Sophia seemed to measure life through something completely different. She valued sincerity. Later that afternoon, Adrian watched Sophia interact with the household staff. She remembered small details about people's lives. She listened when someone needed support. She treated every person with dignity, regardless of their position. Adrian had built his reputation by making people respect him, but Sophia created respect naturally without demanding it. That difference stayed in his thoughts. Meanwhile, Sophia began noticing things about Adrian that did not match his reputation. The city saw him as a cold and untouchable figure. But inside the estate, she saw a man who quietly checked whether employees were doing well. She saw someone who remembered details about conversations others forgot. She saw someone who cared but rarely showed it. One evening, Sophia found Adrian standing alone near the large windows overlooking the city. The lights outside reflected against the glass, but his expression remained distant. She asked if everything was all right. Adrian answered that he was simply thinking. Sophia did not push him for more information. She only reminded him that even people who appeared strong sometimes needed someone to listen. Those simple words affected him more than she realized. Adrian had always believed that showing uncertainty made people lose respect for him. But Sophia did not see honesty as weakness. She saw it as part of being human. For the first time in years, Adrian began wondering if his constant control had protected him or simply kept everyone away. He had spent so long building a world where nobody could hurt him that he had also created a world where nobody could truly reach him. Sophia was the first person who did not try to break through his walls. She simply stood on the other side and waited. As the days continued, the people inside the estate started noticing the unusual connection between them. They saw that Adrian listened when Sophia spoke. They saw that she was not afraid to express her thoughts. They saw two people from completely different worlds beginning to understand each other. Neither Adrian nor Sophia knew where this unexpected connection would lead. But one thing had already become clear. The woman everyone underestimated was becoming the only person who could challenge the man everyone feared. Sophia Carter had entered the Blackwood estate as someone almost nobody expected to notice. She was supposed to remain in the background, complete her duties, and become another forgotten face among the many people who worked around Adrian Blackwood. But every day that passed, Adrian found himself paying closer attention to the one person who never tried to impress him. Sophia did not treat his reputation like a shield that made him unreachable. She treated him like a person. That was something Adrian had not experienced in a very long time. The city knew Adrian as a powerful Korean Mafia boss, a man whose decisions carried influence and whose presence demanded attention. But inside his own home, he had created a world where very few people knew the truth about him. The walls of the mansion were not only made of stone and glass. They were built from years of disappointment, responsibility, and the belief that trusting others always came with a cost. Sophia slowly began noticing those invisible walls. She saw how Adrian often remained alone after meetings. She saw how he would pause before answering simple questions, as if he had become accustomed to hiding his real thoughts. She saw a man who had mastered the art of appearing impossible to hurt. One afternoon, a small disagreement inside the estate revealed even more about their differences. A decision had been made about how certain household matters should be handled, and everyone around Adrian immediately accepted it without question. Sophia, however, respectfully offered another perspective. She explained that the people working in the estate also deserved to be considered, not just managed. The room became quiet. Everyone waited for Adrian's reaction. They expected him to remind her of their different positions. Instead, Adrian asked her to explain her reasoning. Sophia calmly shared that leadership was not only about making decisions. It was also about understanding the people affected by those decisions. Those words remained with Adrian long after the conversation ended. He had spent years believing that strength came from always having the final answer. But Sophia showed him that listening could also be a sign of confidence. Later that evening, Adrian found himself thinking about why her words affected him so much. It was not because she challenged his authority. It was because she reminded him of something he had forgotten. Power could create distance, but respect created connection. Meanwhile, Sophia began seeing another side of Adrian. She noticed the quiet ways he cared for the people around him. He never spoke about those actions, and he never looked for recognition. He simply did what he believed was necessary. The more she observed him, the more she understood that his cold personality was not caused by a lack of compassion. It was caused by years of believing compassion had no place in his world. One evening, Sophia and Adrian shared a conversation in the mansion's library. The room was filled with the soft sound of rain outside, creating a rare moment of calm. Adrian asked her why she was never intimidated by him. Sophia thought carefully before answering. She told him that she respected his position, but she did not believe a title made someone more valuable than another person. Adrian remained silent. For years, people had either feared him or admired his influence. Almost nobody had simply spoken to him as an equal human being. Sophia did not see the image everyone else saw. She saw the person underneath it. That realization unsettled Adrian because it was exactly what he had secretly wanted but never believed he would find. As the night continued, neither of them noticed how much had changed. Their conversations were no longer just about daily responsibilities. They were becoming moments where two completely different worlds began to understand each other. Sophia had not entered the Blackwood estate to change Adrian Blackwood. She had simply refused to pretend he was something less or more than a person. And that honesty became the first real challenge Adrian could not ignore. The relationship between Adrian Blackwood and Sophia Carter continued to change in ways neither of them expected. What began as simple conversations inside the mansion slowly became moments that revealed pieces of themselves they had kept hidden from the rest of the world. Adrian was still known outside the estate as a powerful Korean Mafia boss, a man whose reputation created distance before he even entered a room. But inside those quiet walls, Sophia was beginning to discover that the image people feared was only one part of him. The more she observed Adrian, the more she realized that his cold behavior was not because he lacked emotion. It was because he had spent years learning how to hide it. Adrian, in return, found himself noticing things about Sophia that others overlooked. He saw her patience when situations became difficult. He saw her determination to do what was right even when nobody was watching. He saw that her confidence did not come from status or recognition. It came from knowing who she was. That kind of strength was unfamiliar to him. One morning, Adrian walked through the estate and noticed something unusual. The atmosphere among the staff had changed. People who once moved carefully around him were now more relaxed. They spoke more openly, and there was a sense of comfort that had not existed before. Adrian realized that Sophia had created that change without trying to take control. She simply treated people with respect, and people naturally responded to it. For someone who had spent years building authority through influence, seeing someone create loyalty through kindness was a new experience. Later that day, Adrian found Sophia in the garden behind the mansion. The afternoon sunlight covered the pathways, and for a moment, the world outside the estate felt distant. Adrian asked her why she never seemed impressed by wealth, luxury, or the reputation attached to his name. Sophia answered honestly that those things could describe a person's circumstances, but they could not reveal their character. Adrian remained quiet because her words touched a place he rarely allowed anyone to reach. He had spent so much time proving that he was powerful that he had forgotten what it felt like to simply be understood. Sophia was not trying to change him. She was not trying to gain anything from him. She was simply being honest. That honesty was what made her different. Meanwhile, Sophia began to understand the burden Adrian carried. She noticed how many responsibilities followed him. She saw how people often approached him with expectations instead of genuine concern. Everyone wanted something from the mafia boss, but very few people cared about the person behind the title. Adrian had become so used to being needed that he had forgotten what it felt like to be appreciated. Their conversations became more meaningful with each passing day. They spoke about dreams, fears, and the choices that shaped them. Adrian rarely discussed his personal life, but with Sophia, he found himself answering questions he normally avoided. There was no pressure and no judgment. There was only understanding. One evening, Adrian stood in his office looking through the city lights outside his window. He thought about how different his life felt since Sophia arrived. He had expected her presence to be temporary, just another part of his daily routine. Instead, she had become the person who reminded him that strength was not only about control. It was also about knowing when to listen and when to let someone see the truth. Sophia had challenged something deeper than his authority. She had challenged the belief that he needed to remain distant from everyone around him. And for the first time in many years, Adrian wondered what life could look like if he stopped protecting himself from every possibility of connection. The woman everyone underestimated had quietly become the one person who could reach the part of him that power never could. Adrian Blackwood had spent years believing that every person who entered his world came with a hidden purpose. Some wanted influence. Some wanted protection. Some wanted to benefit from his reputation. In his experience, genuine kindness was rare because most people were interested in what they could gain. That was why Sophia Carter confused him. She had every reason to treat him carefully, yet she never changed the way she spoke to him. She respected his position, but she never allowed his title to define the way she saw him. For Adrian, that was something he could not understand. As the days passed inside the Blackwood estate, the quiet connection between them became impossible to ignore. It was not built through grand gestures or dramatic promises. It grew through small moments that most people would never notice. Sophia remembered how Adrian preferred his morning coffee. She noticed when he seemed lost in thought after long meetings. She understood when silence was more helpful than conversation. These simple details showed Adrian something he had forgotten existed. Someone was paying attention to him, not because of his power, but because they genuinely cared. One afternoon, Adrian returned to the estate earlier than expected. He walked through the quiet halls and found Sophia helping organize a room that had rarely been used. The space contained old furniture and forgotten belongings from years before. Sophia explained that she wanted to make the room more welcoming because everyone in the household deserved to feel comfortable, not just the people with authority. Adrian looked around the room and realized that Sophia had a way of changing environments without demanding attention. She brought warmth into places that had felt empty for a long time. That evening, Adrian asked Sophia a question that surprised her. He wanted to know why she treated everyone with the same respect, regardless of their position. Sophia answered that people often forgot how powerful simple respect could be. She said that a person's job, background, or social standing did not determine their worth. Adrian listened carefully. Those words stayed with him because they challenged the way he had viewed the world for years. He had always believed that power was the foundation of respect. Sophia showed him that respect could exist before power ever entered the room. Meanwhile, people inside the estate began noticing Adrian's transformation. He was still a serious and disciplined leader, but there was a difference in the way he interacted with others. He listened more. He asked questions. He considered opinions he might have ignored before. Nobody understood the reason behind the change better than Sophia. She had never tried to control him. She had simply shown him another way of seeing the world. But not everyone outside the estate understood what was happening. Some people questioned why Adrian spent so much time listening to someone they believed had a lower position. They could not understand why the most feared man in the city valued the perspective of a black maid. They only saw differences in status. They did not see the character behind those differences. Adrian noticed those judgments, but for the first time, he was not influenced by them. He knew Sophia's value was never determined by other people's opinions. One evening, Adrian and Sophia sat in the library surrounded by old books and quiet candlelight. Adrian admitted that he had spent much of his life building a reputation that made people keep their distance. He thought being respected meant being unreachable. Sophia told him that respect without understanding could become loneliness. That sentence remained with him. Adrian realized she was not challenging his strength. She was reminding him that strength did not require isolation. The woman who had entered his estate with no power, no title, and no influence had done something nobody else had managed to do. She had made Adrian Blackwood question the walls he had spent years building. And for the first time, he wondered if protecting his heart had cost him more than he ever realized. Adrian Blackwood had always believed that control was the foundation of survival. Every decision he made, every relationship he maintained, and every step he took was carefully calculated. As the most feared Korean Mafia boss in the city, he had built a reputation that kept people respectful and distant. That distance had protected him for years. But now, inside the quiet halls of the Blackwood estate, one person was slowly showing him that a life built entirely on control could also become a life without connection. Sophia Carter never tried to change Adrian. She never demanded that he become someone different. She simply treated him with honesty, and that was something Adrian had not experienced in a long time. The more time they spent together, the more Adrian began to notice how different his world looked through her eyes. One morning, Adrian found Sophia in the dining room arranging flowers that had been delivered for the estate. It was a simple task, but the care she placed into every detail caught his attention. He asked why she spent so much effort on things that many people would consider unimportant. Sophia smiled and explained that small details often showed people that they mattered. Adrian looked at the flowers quietly, realizing that he had spent years focusing on large achievements while ignoring the small moments that gave life meaning. Sophia had a way of reminding him that influence was not measured only by what a person could command. It was also measured by what they could inspire. Later that week, Adrian attended a meeting where several people discussed matters related to the estate. In the past, he would have made every decision alone. But this time, he asked for opinions from those around him. The change was subtle, but everyone noticed. Adrian was still confident and decisive, but he was no longer interested in proving that he was always right. Sophia had shown him that listening did not reduce his authority. It strengthened his understanding. Meanwhile, Sophia began discovering more about Adrian's past. She learned that his serious personality had developed through years of responsibility and disappointment. She understood that the man others feared was someone who had learned to hide every emotion behind a calm expression. She never felt sorry for him. Instead, she respected the strength it took for him to continue moving forward despite everything he carried. That difference mattered to Adrian. He did not want someone to see him as broken. He wanted someone to see him as human. One evening, a heavy silence filled the mansion after Adrian returned from a difficult day. Sophia noticed that he was quieter than usual. Instead of asking unnecessary questions, she simply placed a warm cup of tea nearby and reminded him that he did not always have to carry every responsibility alone. Adrian looked at her with surprise. Most people around him wanted answers, solutions, or opportunities. Sophia offered understanding without expecting anything in return. That moment stayed with him. For years, Adrian believed that needing others was a weakness, but Sophia showed him that trust was not surrender. It was a choice. As their connection grew stronger, Adrian realized that Sophia had challenged the one belief he had never questioned. He had always thought people respected him because they feared his power, but Sophia respected him because she saw the person behind the reputation. That was something money, influence, and status could never create. The estate that once felt like a place of silence slowly became a place where Adrian allowed himself to be more open. The transformation was not sudden. It happened through countless small moments, each one showing him that the walls around his heart were not protecting him anymore. They were keeping him away from the very connection he had secretly wanted. Sophia Carter had entered his world as someone others overlooked, but she had become the one person who made the most powerful man in the city question everything he thought he knew about strength. The transformation inside the Blackwood estate did not happen overnight. It was built through quiet moments, honest conversations, and small choices that revealed a different side of Adrian Blackwood. The man who once believed distance was the safest way to live was beginning to understand that connection could be a different kind of strength. Sophia Carter never forced him to change. She never demanded his attention or tried to challenge his position. She simply remained true to herself, and that honesty continued to influence him in ways he never expected. Adrian was still a powerful Korean Mafia boss with responsibilities that followed him everywhere. The world outside still viewed him as a person who could control any situation. But inside the estate, something had changed. He was no longer focused only on maintaining an image. He was beginning to care about the people around him in a more personal way. Sophia noticed this change before anyone else did. She saw how Adrian started asking questions instead of giving orders. She saw how he considered the thoughts of others before making decisions. She saw a man who was slowly discovering that leadership was not about standing above everyone else. It was about understanding the people who stood beside him. One afternoon, Adrian and Sophia walked through the garden behind the mansion. The sky was clear, and the peaceful surroundings created a rare moment away from the expectations of the outside world. Adrian admitted that he had spent most of his life believing people only stayed close to him because of his power. He thought that if he showed too much of himself, others would see him differently. Sophia listened carefully and told him that hiding every part of himself would never allow anyone to truly know him. She explained that being respected and being understood were two different things. Those words stayed with Adrian because they described something he had never been able to explain. He had achieved everything people considered valuable, yet he still felt like a stranger in his own life. Sophia had noticed the person behind the reputation when everyone else only saw the title. Meanwhile, Sophia also experienced a change. For years, she had learned to remain quiet because people often judged her position before knowing her character. But inside the Blackwood estate, Adrian treated her opinions as valuable. He did not dismiss her because of her role. He listened because he respected her perspective. That was something she had rarely experienced from someone with so much influence. Their connection became a balance between two different worlds. Adrian taught Sophia that her voice deserved to be heard. Sophia reminded Adrian that strength did not require emotional isolation. They were not changing each other into different people. They were helping each other become more honest versions of themselves. However, outside the peaceful atmosphere of the estate, people continued to question the unusual bond between them. Some could not understand why someone as powerful as Adrian would value the opinion of a black maid. They believed status determined importance. They failed to see what Adrian had already learned. A person's worth was not created by wealth, position, or reputation. It was revealed through character. One evening, Adrian stood in the main hall where he had first met Sophia. He remembered how distant everything had felt back then. The mansion had been filled with luxury, but it had lacked warmth. Now, the same place felt different. The change was not because the building had changed. It was because the people inside it had. Adrian looked at Sophia and realized that she had never tried to enter his world to gain something from him. She had entered his world and simply brought honesty with her. The woman everyone underestimated had done what nobody else could. She had reminded Adrian Blackwood that the strongest walls are not always the ones that protect us. Sometimes, they are the ones that keep us from being truly seen. Years passed, and the Blackwood estate became a place that reflected the transformation of the people living inside it. The mansion that once felt distant and silent slowly became filled with warmth, conversation, and a sense of belonging. Adrian Blackwood remained a powerful Korean Mafia boss, respected by many and known throughout the city. But the person inside the estate was no longer the same man who believed strength meant keeping everyone away. Sophia Carter had changed something he never thought could be changed. She had not taken away his ambition, his discipline, or his ability to lead. Instead, she had shown him that true strength could exist alongside kindness, trust, and understanding. Adrian often thought about the first day Sophia entered his world. At that time, he believed she would simply become another person who saw his title before seeing him. He expected distance, caution, and the same careful behavior he had received from everyone else. But Sophia had done something completely different. She had looked beyond the reputation and noticed the person behind it. That simple act had become the beginning of a journey neither of them expected. Sophia also changed in ways she never imagined. She had entered the Blackwood estate knowing that many people would judge her because of her position. She knew some would focus on what she did rather than who she was. But Adrian's respect reminded her that dignity was never determined by someone else's opinion. He saw her intelligence, her patience, and her strength. He valued her voice because he understood that character was not connected to social status. One evening, Adrian and Sophia stood together in the garden where they had shared many important conversations. The city lights shined in the distance, and the peaceful atmosphere felt completely different from the cold silence that once surrounded the estate. Adrian admitted that he had spent much of his life trying to become someone nobody could hurt. He believed that if he controlled every situation and revealed very little about himself, he would always remain protected. Sophia listened quietly before telling him that a person could build the strongest walls in the world and still feel alone behind them. Adrian smiled because he knew she was right. He had gained influence, wealth, and recognition. But the thing he valued most was the connection he had never expected to find. Sophia never became important because of her relationship with Adrian. She became important because she had always carried her own value. The people around them eventually understood that as well. Those who once questioned why Adrian respected a Black Maid began to see what he had seen from the beginning. Sophia was not defined by her position. She was defined by her compassion, honesty, and courage. Adrian was not changed because someone forced him to become different. He changed because someone finally gave him a reason to look beyond the image he had created. Their story became a reminder that people are often more than what the world sees at first glance. A powerful person can still need understanding. A person with a humble position can still possess incredible strength. And sometimes the person everyone overlooks is the person who brings the greatest change. Adrian Blackwood remained a leader, but he was no longer a man trapped behind his own reputation. Sophia Carter remained the same genuine person she had always been, but now the world around her recognized what had always been there. They came from different backgrounds, different experiences, and different worlds, yet they discovered the same truth. Respect is not created by fear, wealth, or status. It is created when people choose to see the humanity in one another. And in the quiet halls of the Blackwood estate, everyone eventually remembered the lesson Sophia had shown them from the beginning. The strongest person in the room is not always the one with the most power. Sometimes it is the person brave enough to remain true to themselves.